Welcome to my video. This video is made to support the learning management system of English for Specific Purposes course. In our learning management system, there are some materials are provided. So, learning from this video, hopefully the students will be able to comprehend about English for specific materials easily. But beforehand, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Titi Lina. I'm one of the lecturers of English Department STKIP PGRI Tulungagung. This semester, I'm teaching English for Specific Purposes course to the 5th semester students. Well, hopefully this video will be useful for you. Take a look on our learning management system, especially for the students. There are some materials there actually, before we discuss more about ESP in this video. For the students, when you come to our learning management system, you will find some materials. The first is about the origin of ESP. You will get the materials there. The second, you will know about the development of ESP. The third, you also learn about ESP approach. The next, you will also learn about language description, theories of learning, and also needs analysis. Not only those kinds of materials, but also you can also learn about syllabus and materials development, methodology, and rules for ESP teachers. To start discuss about ESP itself, I provided you two kinds of questions. The first is, what are the differences between English for general purposes and also English for specific purposes? Because those two terms are completely different. The second question is about what are the characteristics for English for specific purposes. Well, now let's start from English for general purposes. Most of us know that actually talking about general purposes, all of us learn about grammar, sentence, and language structures. It means that we are learning English generally, from the surface in this case. The second one is about improve our language skills. As we know that we have 4 kinds of language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. We also learn it in general English in general purposes. But we only learn for those kinds of skills in general again and again. The next characteristics of English for general purposes is there is no certain task. It means that the teacher just gives tasks to the students without a certain purpose here. They just learn, they know the grammar, and then they can apply it in their language skills. The next is about English for general purposes refers to the use of English was on a peak. It means that learning English as the means of communication for all of us if we want to communicate with all of people around the world. So this is all about what we are going to talk about general English. So those kinds of characteristics, I think those are clear enough when we are talking about general English. Now, let's come to the discussion of English for specific purposes. I'm going to discuss from a very basic theory of English for specific purposes. Well, actually, there are so many kinds of experts that provide the definitions of English for specific purposes. But here, let me simplify, and I just want to take one of the theory from Hutchinson and also Waters in this theory. According to them, ESP is an advanced approach to the language teaching, in which all of the choices related to the content and strategy based on the learner's reason for learning. From this theory, well, actually, we understand that ESP is not just teaching English, but the teacher must consider about the learner's need. Just example, if you are going to teach the student who need about English for medicine, make sure what they need. So that's why in the process of teaching ESP, there must be the process of getting the data, especially about needs analysis. As the teacher, you have to provide your needs analysis. So you will know what kinds of need that your student really want to. If you want to teach English for civic students, make sure you provide the vocabularies, you provide the activities dealing with their discipline. Those are just examples. The next, ESP is a field of teaching English, which focuses on developing communicative skills in specific discipline. Nowadays, there are at least four kinds of branches of ESP. Even now we have 5. The first is English for academic purposes. I think this is something familiar for all of us. The next is English for occupational purposes. The third is about English for business purposes. And then the fourth is about English for professional purposes. And the fifth is about English for vocational purposes. So having this kinds of description, we know that inside of ESP, still so many branches that we are going to learn. You can understand that actually being a student of ESP course, you will learn and still you can have many kinds of vocabularies that you can enrich during joining these kinds of course. And then ESP used in particular teaching circumstance. It is an advanced approach as compared to general English. So there must be particular strategy, method that the teacher usually provide in the class. And then ESP has been designed for mature learners. So commonly, we don't teach ESP to children because they don't have any prior knowledge about general English. The mature learners here means they have a very basic understanding about general English. So having a very basic understanding, so it will be easier for the learners to get the information about English for specific purposes materials. So usually we teach English for specific purposes in expert work situation or at higher education. Well, try to coming back from the previous history about ESP itself. From the most 1960s, ESP has developed to turn into one of the most extending areas of EFL teaching. And then, the most vital distinction lies in the learners and their motivation for learning English. So I think from here, it has been clear enough. When we are going to teach ESP to the students, we have to know and get the data in detail about the learner's need in this case. And then, ESP students are generally adults who already have knowledge of the language. They study in the language in order to communicate a set of professional skills, as well as to perform specific occupation-related function. ESP also aims more on language in context than grammar and language structures. And then, ESP uses needs analysis to determine which language skills are most needed. Once more, needs analysis. I also tell you that as a teacher of English for specific purposes, you will get used to discussing or let's say preparing about needs analysis. In ESP, we also have the syllabus. The syllabus are designed based on the learner's need. So after getting the needs analysis, so we use it to, to formulate our syllabus. And in syllabus, of course, we will relate it to the materials. So before we come to the class, everything has been set. So you are ready to teach your students in this case. And then, this is something special for ESP teacher actually. Because as ESP teacher, you cannot just come to the class and then teach. The rule of you as ESP teacher, you have some rules in this case. The first is you have to be ready to be the designer. And then you have to be ready to be the collaborator. And then you have to be ready to be a researcher, even evaluator. So those kinds of rules make sure that we are ready as ESP teacher. As ESP teacher, we also learn how to organize the courses, set the learning goals, and then set learning objectives, design and organize course materials, and the last, of course, in the last of the process, we also have the plan for the students' assessment, because assessment is a very important part of teaching. So not only providing the syllabus, but also we have to provide what kinds of steps that we are going to apply to the students, especially about assessment in this case. So the point is, the main focus of ESP is how to teach English with a proper and easy method for specific goals. It doesn't emphasize on the language, but tries to highlight the needs of the learners once more. Obviously, in tourism, for example, your communication is really important. Let's say you are the students of tourism, for example. Your program is about tourism. So you will need English to communicate, right? So without communication skill, it is impossible for you to interact with others. And then, as the conclusion, we can try to describe some points here. The first, ESP is all based on the learner's requirement. The teacher is not the one who will decide the materials, but he or she must get the needs analysis from the student's need. The second, ESP has particular use of the vocabularies. If we are talking about civics, it will be different term when we are trying to compare to other discipline, for example. The next is about ESP use different tactics to accomplish its target. And the last is ESP is all about the learner's need goals oriented. So these kinds of points we can try to get as the conclusion of this video. And then in the last of this video, I want to encourage you to learn about ESP, because learning ESP we get some benefits. The first, of course, knowing about ESP, since inside of it you can find some branches of let's say knowledge, so of course you will reach your vocabularies. You know how to say in, let's say the topics is about doctors, medicine, about civics, about economics, so you will have many vocabularies after learning about English for specific purposes. This is the first benefit that we are going to learn after, try to get involved with the ESP. The second, of course, it will improve your language skills. As you can have your vocabulary enriched, of course, you can write better. You can speak even fluently, more fluently, because you have many things inside of your head. You have some vocabularies, even many vocabularies to talk about in what kinds of topics. And then the third, you will be able to teach many disciplines. Even though that we are from English department, but having these kinds of subject, these kinds of course, I can guarantee that you can teach other students from different disciplines. So I think this third benefit is so important for us. The last is about improve our translation or interpreting skills. Yeah, this is a very important, benefit, especially for the ones, or maybe for the students. Maybe you have a plan to be the translator or interpreter. So knowing about ESP or learning about ESP, it will help you to improve or even to master about translation and also interpreting skills. Well, actually this is the last of our discussion about English for specific purposes. I hope that you will learn many information from this video. And to finish or to close my video, I have one of the quote from one of the experts that say, good teachers know how to bring out the best in the students. That's all from me. Thank you.